At 3 a.m., she appeared beside my bed with nowhere else to go. But what started as a desperate night would become the love story neither of us saw coming. Alex had been living like a ghost for the past 6 months. Every morning he would drag himself out of bed, grab a quick coffee, and head to his office where he spent endless hours designing buildings that other people would call home. The irony wasn't lost on him. He created spaces for families to live and love while his own apartment felt more like a prison cell. The divorce papers had been signed 3 months ago, but the emptiness in his chest hadn't gotten any smaller. His ex-wife had taken most of their furniture, leaving behind only the basics and a bunch of memories he wished he could forget. The apartment on the 15th floor had once been their dream home, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Now those same windows just reminded him of how alone he was in a city of millions. Sleep had become his enemy. Every night he would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts of what went wrong, what he could have done differently, and how he had ended up completely alone at 34. The sleeping pills his doctor prescribed only made him feel groggy the next day, so he had stopped taking them weeks ago. On this particular Thursday night, exhaustion finally won the battle. Alex had been working on a new apartment complex design for almost 18 hours straight, surviving on nothing but coffee and determination. His eyes burned from staring at the computer screen, and his neck ached from hunching over his drafting table. Around midnight, he stumbled into his bedroom and collapsed onto the bed, not even bothering to change out of his work clothes. For once, sleep came quickly. Maybe it was the pure exhaustion, or maybe his body had finally given up fighting his restless mind. Either way, Alex found himself in the deepest sleep he had experienced in months. His dreams were peaceful for the first time in weeks. No nightmares about court dates or empty apartments or failed relationships. But something pulled him back to consciousness around 3 in the morning. At first, he thought it might have been a sound from the street below, or maybe his upstairs neighbor dropping something heavy on the floor. The building was old, and sounds traveled easily through the thin walls. He kept his eyes closed, hoping to drift back to sleep when he heard the soft sound of bare feet on his hardwood floor. His heart nearly stopped when he opened his eyes. There, standing beside his bed, was Luna, the woman who lived in the apartment, directly above his. They had bumped into each other maybe a dozen times in the elevator or the mailroom, exchanging polite smiles and small talk about the weather or the building's quirky heating system. She was probably in her late 20s with kind eyes and an easy laugh that he had found himself thinking about more often than he cared to admit. But this wasn't a casual hallway encounter. Luna stood there wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt that barely covered her thighs, and she was clearly upset. Her dark hair was messy, as if she had been running her hands through it, and there were tear stains on her cheeks. When she noticed he was awake, she didn't jump back or apologize for the intrusion. Instead, she looked directly into his eyes and gave him a small, sad smile. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice shaky but determined. "I know this is crazy, but I didn't know where else to go." Alex sat up slowly, trying to process what was happening. His first instinct was to grab a blanket and cover himself, suddenly aware that he was still in yesterday's wrinkled clothes. His second instinct was to ask her how she had gotten into his apartment, but the vulnerable look in her eyes stopped him from asking the obvious questions. "Are you okay?" he asked instead, his voice rough from sleep. "What happened?" Luna wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller and more fragile than he had ever seen her. "Rick and I had a huge fight tonight. He threw me out and changed the locks. I have nowhere to go, and it's 3 in the morning, and I remembered that you once said if I ever needed anything." Alex did remember. It was about 2 months ago, when they had gotten stuck in the elevator together for 20 minutes. They had talked about their jobs, the neighborhood, and life in general. When she mentioned that she didn't have many friends in the city yet, he had offhandedly said she could always knock on his door if she needed help with anything. It was the kind of thing people say to be polite, never expecting anyone to actually take them up on the offer. But here she was, standing in his bedroom at 3 in the morning, having somehow convinced the night security guard to let her use the spare key that all tenants were required to leave with building management for emergencies. The situation should have felt awkward or inappropriate, but instead, Alex found himself feeling something he hadn't experienced in months: the need to help someone, to be useful, to matter to another human being. He climbed out of bed carefully, trying not to startle her. "Of course, you did the right thing coming here. Are you hurt? Did he hurt you?" Luna shook her head quickly, but Alex could see the fear in her eyes. "No, not physically, but Alex, I think I've made a terrible mistake with my life. I don't know how I got so lost." The way she said his name sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. In all their brief encounters, he couldn't remember her ever using his name before. Now, standing in his bedroom in the middle of the night, it felt intimate in a way that made his heart race despite the strange circumstances. He grabbed a robe from his closet and held it out to her. "Here, put this on. I'll make some coffee and we can figure out what to do next." Luna took the robe gratefully and wrapped it around herself. For just a moment, as she tied the belt, their hands brushed together. The contact was brief but electric, and Alex felt something shift inside him, an awakening he hadn't expected and wasn't sure he was ready for. As they walked toward the kitchen together, Alex realized that for the first time in months, he felt truly awake. The lonely apartment suddenly didn't feel so empty anymore. The kitchen felt different with Luna sitting at his small dining table. Alex had eaten breakfast alone at that same spot for months, but now the space seemed warmer somehow. He busied himself making coffee, grateful for something to do with his hands while his mind tried to catch up with everything that had just happened. Luna pulled the robe tighter around herself and watched him move around the kitchen. "I can't believe I actually did this," she said softly, "showing up here like some crazy person in the middle of the night." Alex glanced over his shoulder as he filled the coffee maker with water. "You're not crazy. You needed help, and you came to someone who offered it. That takes courage. Or complete desperation," Luna replied with a bitter laugh. "I've been lying to myself for so long about Rick. Tonight just made it impossible to pretend anymore." The coffee maker started its familiar gurgling sound, and Alex sat down across from her. In the soft light from the kitchen lamp, he could see that her eyes were red from crying. But there was something else there, too, a kind of determination he hadn't noticed before. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" he asked carefully. "You don't have to, but sometimes it helps." Luna was quiet for a long moment, tracing patterns on the table with her finger. "We've been together for almost 3 years. In the beginning, Rick was so charming and attentive. He made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. But somewhere along the way, that attention turned into something else." She paused, and Alex waited patiently. He had learned during his own divorce that sometimes people just needed space to find the right words. "He started checking my phone," Luna continued. "At first, he said it was because he loved me so much and just wanted to be part of every aspect of my life. Then he began questioning my friendships, especially with other women. He said my friends were bad influences, that they didn't really care about me the way he did." Alex felt a familiar anger rising in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. That must have been really isolating. It was. Before I knew it, I had pushed away everyone who cared about me. I stopped going out with friends, stopped pursuing. My photography stopped being myself, really. Rick said he was protecting me from people who would hurt me, but I realize now that he was the one hurting me most. The coffee finished brewing, and Alex got up to pour 2 cups. He added cream to his own and offered some to Luna, who nodded gratefully. The simple act of preparing coffee for someone else felt surprisingly good, after months of only taking care of himself. "What happened tonight?" Alex asked as he sat back down. Luna wrapped her hands around the warm mug, using it as much for comfort as warmth. "I found out he's been reading my emails, not just checking them. Actually reading through years of my personal correspondence with my family, my old friends, everyone. When I confronted him about it, he didn't even deny it. He said it was his right as my boyfriend to know everything about my life." "That's not a relationship," Alex said quietly. "That's control. I know that now. But when you're in it, when someone slowly takes away pieces of your freedom, you don't notice until one day you wake up and realize you're living in a cage." Luna's voice grew stronger as she spoke. Tonight, when he started going through my phone right in front of me like it was completely normal, something inside me just snapped. Alex found himself leaning forward, drawn in by her story and impressed by her strength. "What did you do?" I told him I was done, that I wanted him to leave, that I needed space to think. He laughed at me, Alex. He actually laughed and said, I wouldn't last a day without him, that I needed him to make decisions for me because I was too weak to handle life on my own. The pain in her voice made Alex's heart ache. He knew what it felt like to have someone you trusted tear you down, to make you question your own worth. His ex-wife had been more subtle about it, but the damage was just as real. So I packed a bag, Luna continued. But when I came back from the bedroom, he was standing by the door with his arms crossed. He said if I left, I couldn't come back, that he would change the locks and I could figure out my own life since I thought I was so independent. And you left anyway. Luna nodded, and for the first time since she had appeared in his bedroom, she smiled, really smiled. I walked right past him and out the door. I've never done anything that scared me more, but also never felt so proud of myself. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Alex found himself studying Luna's face in the lamplight, noticing things he had never seen during their brief elevator conversations. There was a resilience in her features, a quiet strength that had probably been there all along but had been hidden under years of someone else's control. Can I ask you something? Luna said eventually. Of course. When we talked in the elevator, that time you seemed sad. I mean, you were polite and everything, but there was something in your eyes. Are you going through something too? Alex was surprised by her perceptiveness. He had thought he was good at hiding his emotions, especially from near strangers. My divorce was finalized a few months ago. I guess I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not part of a couple anymore. Was it bad? The marriage, I mean. Alex considered the question. Not bad exactly, but not good either. We just slowly grew into different people who wanted different things. By the end, we were more like roommates who occasionally argued about bills and whose turn it was to take out the trash. That sounds lonely. It was, but you know what's strange? I feel less lonely sitting here with you right now than I have in months. Luna met his eyes across the table, and something passed between them, an understanding, a connection that went deeper than their unusual circumstances. They were both people who had lost themselves in relationships that weren't right for them, and somehow they had found each other on the night they both needed it most. Outside, the city was starting to wake up. Early morning joggers were beginning to appear on the streets below and the sky was getting lighter. But inside Alex's kitchen, time seemed suspended. Two people who had been strangers 12 hours ago were discovering that sometimes the most profound connections happen when you least expect them. 3 weeks had passed since that early morning conversation in Alex's kitchen, and their lives had settled into an unexpected rhythm. Luna had been sleeping on his couch, despite his offers to take the living room himself. She insisted that, since he was doing her the favor, the least she could do was not kick him out of his own bedroom. Every morning, Alex would wake up to the smell of coffee and find Luna already dressed and ready for her day. She had found a part-time job at a small art gallery downtown, thanks to a recommendation from Alex's architect friend who knew the owner. It wasn't much money, but it was a start, and more importantly, it was hers. Good morning, Luna said as Alex shuffled into the kitchen one Tuesday morning, still in his pajamas and looking like he had wrestled with his pillow all night. Morning, he mumbled, accepting the cup of coffee she held out to him. This had become their routine. Luna made the coffee, and Alex handled breakfast when he had time. You were tossing and turning again last night, she observed, studying his face with the kind of attention that still surprised him. In his marriage, he couldn't remember his ex-wife noticing when he had trouble sleeping. Alex rubbed his eyes. Sorry if I kept you awake. I've had insomnia for months. My brain just won't shut off when it's supposed to. You didn't keep me awake. I'm a light sleeper anyway. Luna leaned against the counter, holding her own mug with both hands. What keeps your mind racing? It was the kind of personal question that Alex would have deflected just a month ago, but living with Luna had changed something in him. She had shared so much of her story with him that holding back his own struggles felt dishonest. Work stress, mostly. And I guess I keep replaying my marriage in my head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. My therapist says I need to stop analyzing the past and focus on the present, but that's easier said than done. You're seeing a therapist? Started going after the divorce. Figured I should probably talk to someone who wouldn't judge me for eating cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row. Luna laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen with warmth. Hey, cereal for dinner is a valid life choice. I've been living on ramen and whatever leftovers you don't finish. Speaking of which, Alex said, opening the refrigerator, I'm making actual breakfast this morning. Eggs, toast, maybe even some of that fancy jam you brought home from the gallery. You don't have to cook for me, Alex. You're already doing so much by letting me stay here. Alex cracked eggs into a pan, focusing on not breaking the yolks. I like cooking for someone again. I forgot how nice it is to have a reason to make more than just coffee and toast. They ate breakfast together, talking about Luna's plans for the day and Alex's latest project, a community center that was proving more challenging than he had expected. These morning conversations had become precious to both of them, a peaceful way to start each day that neither wanted to give up. After Luna left for work, Alex found himself looking forward to the evening when she would come home with stories about the gallery visitors or the quirky artist whose work was currently on display. She had a way of describing people that made him feel like he had met them himself, and her enthusiasm for art was infectious. In the evenings, they would sit on opposite ends of his couch, Luna with her photography books, and Alex with his architectural, journals, or laptop. Sometimes they would watch a movie, debating the merits of different directors or laughing at the same jokes. Other times they would just talk, sharing memories from their childhoods or dreams they had put aside. Alex was careful to maintain appropriate boundaries. When Luna needed to change clothes, he made sure to be in another room. When she showered, he would busy himself in the kitchen or go for a walk around the block. The intimacy of sharing a living space was new territory for both of them, and neither wanted to complicate their friendship with misunderstandings, but the boundaries couldn't prevent the growing connection between them. Alex found himself noticing small things about Luna: how she hummed while she washed dishes, how she always curled up in the corner of the couch with her feet tucked under her, how her face lit up when she talked about a photograph she wanted. To take Luna, for her part, was discovering sides of Alex that their brief elevator conversations had never revealed. He was funnier than she had expected, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He was also incredibly thoughtful, always making sure she was comfortable, always asking what she needed without making her feel like a burden. One evening, as they sat reading on the couch, Luna looked up from her book. Alex, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever feel guilty about being happy? Alex set down his laptop and gave her his full attention. What do you mean? I mean, my life is kind of a mess right now. I'm sleeping on your couch, I barely have any money, and I left a 3-year relationship with nothing but a suitcase. But sitting here with you, reading and just being, I feel happier than I have in years. Is that weird? Alex was quiet for a moment, considering her question. I don't think it's weird at all. I've been thinking the same thing, actually. My life isn't exactly where I planned it would be at 34, but having you here has made everything feel less empty. I worry sometimes that I'm using this situation as an escape from dealing with my real problems. Are you? Alex asked gently. Luna thought about it. No, I don't think so. If anything, being here has helped me remember who I am when I'm not constantly worried about making someone else happy. I forgot how much I love taking pictures until I started walking around the neighborhood and seeing it through my camera again. You've been taking pictures? Luna nodded, suddenly shy. Just around the building and the surrounding blocks, nothing special. I'd love to see them sometime if you want to share. The offer hung in the air between them, another small step toward deeper intimacy. They were both cautious people who had been hurt before, but they were also discovering that trust could be built in small moments, through shared meals and quiet conversations and the simple act of making space for each other in their lives. Outside their windows, the city hummed with its usual energy, millions of people living their separate lives. But inside Alex's apartment, two people who had found each other during their darkest moments were slowly building something new, a friendship that was becoming the foundation for healing, growth, and maybe something even more meaningful than either of them dared to hope for yet. The first sign of trouble came on a Thursday afternoon when Luna called Alex at work, her voice shaky and scared. She was at the gallery, and Rick had shown up demanding to talk to her. The gallery owner had asked him to leave, but he had waited, outside for over an hour before finally driving away. "He knows where I work," Luna said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I don't know how he found out, but he kept saying I belonged with him and that I was making a huge mistake." Alex felt his stomach drop. He had hoped that Rick would eventually accept that the relationship was over and move on. But apparently, that wasn't going to happen. "Are you safe right now? Do you want me to come pick you up?" "No, I'm okay. The gallery owner, Mrs. Chen, she's really nice. She said she'll make sure I get to my car safely when my shift ends. But Alex, I'm scared. What if he comes to your apartment? What if he tries to hurt you because you're helping me?" Alex had been wondering the same thing, but hearing the fear in Luna's voice made his decision easy. "Let him come. You're not going back to someone who scares you, and I'm not going to let him intimidate either of us." That evening, Alex waited for Luna to come home with a mixture of anxiety and determination. He had never been the type to look for confrontation, but something had changed in him over the past month. Having Luna in his life had reminded him what it felt like to care about someone else's well-being more than his own comfort. Luna arrived, home later than usual, clearly rattled but trying to hide it. "Mrs. Chen insisted on driving me home," she explained. "She said Rick came back to the gallery after closing and was looking through the windows." Alex felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "How are you feeling about all this?" Luna sat down on the couch and pulled her knees up to her chest. "Honestly, part of me wants to just go back to him to make this all stop. I know that's crazy, but dealing with his anger feels familiar. This whole situation with you building a new life, it's scary in a different way." "What's scary about it? What if I'm not as strong as I think I am? What if I can't actually make it on my own? Rick always said I needed him to take care of me, and even though I know he was wrong, sometimes that voice in my head gets really loud." Alex moved to sit beside her on the couch, careful to leave enough space that she wouldn't feel crowded. "You want to know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who had the courage to leave a bad situation with nowhere to go. I see someone who found a job and is working to rebuild her life from nothing. I see someone who makes coffee every morning for someone who helped her, even though she doesn't have to." Luna looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You really see me that way?" "I do. And more than that, being around you has reminded me that I'm stronger than I thought I was too. Before you showed up that night, I was just going through the motions of living. Now I actually look forward to coming home." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the city was settling into evening, and the warm light from Alex's living room lamps made the apartment feel safe and cozy. The peace was shattered by aggressive knocking on the front door, not the polite tap of a neighbor or delivery person, but the demanding pound of someone who expected to be let in immediately. Luna's face went white. "That's him. That's Rick's knock." Alex felt his heart rate spike, but he forced himself to stay calm. "It's okay. You don't have to see him if you don't want to. I'll handle this." "Alex, no. He might try to hurt you." "He might try," Alex said, standing up and walking toward the door. "But I'm not going to let him think he can terrorize you." The knocking continued, accompanied now by Rick's voice calling Luna's name and demanding that she open the door. Alex looked through the peephole and saw a man about his own age but bigger and clearly agitated. "Luna's not available to talk right now." Alex called through the door. "You need to leave." "Who the hell are you?" Rick shouted back. "I want to talk to my girlfriend." "She's not your girlfriend anymore, and this is private property. You're trespassing." Alex heard Rick rattling the door handle and felt a surge of protectiveness unlike anything he had ever experienced. Behind him, Luna had moved to the kitchen where she was calling building security on her phone. You think you can just steal someone's girlfriend? Rick yelled. Luna, I know you're in there. You're making a huge mistake and you're going to regret this. Alex opened the door just wide enough to step into the hallway, making sure to lock it behind him so Rick couldn't push past him to get to Luna. The man was indeed bigger than Alex, but there was something desperate and unhinged in his eyes that actually made Alex feel more confident rather than less. Luna made her choice, Alex said calmly. She asked you to leave her alone, and now I'm asking you the same thing. This is harassment, and if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. Rick stepped closer, trying to intimidate Alex with his size. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, buddy. Luna needs someone who understands her, someone who can take care of her. She'll be back with me in a week. No, she won't, Alex said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. Because she's not property that belongs to anyone. She's a person who deserves respect and kindness, things you clearly don't understand. For a moment, Alex thought Rick might actually swing at him. The man's hands were clenched into fists and his face was red with anger. But then the elevator opened and 2 security guards stepped out, clearly responding to Luna's call. Is there a problem here? One of the guards asked. Rick looked back and forth between Alex and the security guards, clearly calculating his options. Finally, he pointed a finger at Alex. This isn't over. Luna belongs with me and she knows it. Sir, you need to leave the building immediately, the security guard said firmly. If you return, we'll call the police. As Rick was escorted away, Alex felt his hands shaking from adrenaline. He had never stood up to anyone like that before, but he had also never had something so important to protect. When he went back inside, Luna was waiting by the door with tears streaming down her face. Without thinking, Alex pulled her into his arms and she pressed her face against his chest, finally allowing herself to cry. Thank you, she whispered. No one has ever stood up for me like that before. Alex held her tighter, realizing that, in protecting Luna, he had found a strength he never knew he possessed. They both understood that this confrontation had changed something between them, bringing them closer together in a way that mere friendship couldn't explain. 6 months later, Alex stood in the doorway of his bedroom watching Luna pack the last of her photography equipment into a sturdy black case. She had finally saved enough money to get her own apartment, a small studio just 10 blocks away. It should have felt like a victory, a sign that she had successfully rebuilt her life, but instead, Alex felt an emptiness in his chest that reminded him too much of the months after his divorce. I think that's everything, Luna said, closing the case with a soft click. She looked around the room that had become her makeshift darkroom over the past few weeks. Alex had helped her convert his spare closet into a developing space, and the walls were still lined with her black and white photographs of the neighborhood. You don't have to take all of these, Alex said, gesturing to the photos. I mean, if you want to leave some here, I'd like that. Luna smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes too. I was hoping you'd say that. I love how they look in this light. They had both been dancing around the obvious question for weeks now. Luna was financially stable enough to live on her own, and she had proven to herself and everyone else that she could build a life independently. But neither of them actually wanted her to leave. The photography exhibition at Mrs. Chen's gallery had been a turning point. Luna's pictures of their neighborhood had captured something special. The way morning light hit the old brick buildings, the expressions on people's faces as they hurried to work, the quiet moments of beauty that most people walked past without noticing. Alex had helped her with the composition and framing, his architectural eye complementing her artistic vision in ways that surprised them both. Mrs. Chen called this morning, Luna said, sitting down on the edge of the bed. She wants to give me more wall space next month. She says people have been asking about purchasing prints. That's incredible, Luna. Your work deserves to be seen. Alex sat down beside her, careful to maintain the respectful distance they had preserved throughout their months as roommates. Even after the night Rick had confronted them, even after they had held each other and cried together, they had both been cautious about crossing the line from friendship into something more complicated. I've been thinking, Luna said quietly, about that night when Rick came here, about how you stood up for me. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, they wouldn't have. Rick was right about one thing. I had never had anyone protect me like that before, not just from him, but from my own doubts about whether I deserved better. Alex felt his heart racing, but he tried to keep his voice steady. You've always deserved better. You just needed time to see it yourself. Luna turned to face him fully, her dark eyes serious and honest. Living here with you, it's shown me what a real partnership looks like. How two people can support each other without trying to control each other. How someone can care about you and still want you to be your own person. Luna, I know we've been careful about keeping things platonic, she continued, and I understand why. We were both coming out of bad relationships, both trying to figure out who we were as individuals. But Alex, I need you to know that what I feel for you isn't just gratitude for helping me. It's not just friendship either. Alex felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that whatever he said next would change everything between them. I feel the same way, he admitted. I have for months, but I didn't want to complicate things for you when you were still healing. What if I told you that being with you is part of my healing? That you've helped me remember what it feels like to be cared for without being controlled? Alex reached for her hand and she intertwined their fingers naturally. Then I'd say that you've done the same thing for me. Before you showed up that night, I was just existing. Now I actually feel alive again. They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the weight of what they had just admitted to each other. Outside, the city hummed with its usual energy, but inside Alex's bedroom, time seemed suspended. So what do we do now? Luna asked. Alex squeezed her hand gently. Well, you could still get that studio apartment, have your own space, your own independence, prove to yourself that you can make it completely on your own. Luna's face fell slightly. Oh, okay, I understand. Or, Alex continued, smiling at her reaction, you could stay here, not as someone who needs rescuing, and not as just a roommate, as my partner, as someone who chooses to build a life with me because we make each other better. Luna's smile was brighter than any photograph she had ever taken. Are you asking me to move in with you? Officially, I mean? I'm asking you to build something with me that neither of us could create alone. Your photography, my architecture. Your strength, my steadiness. Your ability to see beauty in unexpected places, my talent for creating spaces where people can feel at home. Luna leaned closer to him, and Alex felt his breath catch. What would that look like? I don't know exactly, Alex admitted, but I know I want to find out with you. When Luna kissed him, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Not desperate or urgent like their first encounter had been, but sure and sweet and full of promise. They had both learned the difference between settling for someone and choosing someone, between needing someone and wanting them. A year later, Alex proposed to Luna in the same bedroom where their story had begun, surrounded by her photographs and his architectural sketches. The ring was simple and elegant, and when she said yes, he felt like the luckiest man in the city. They were married in a small ceremony at Mrs. Chen's gallery, surrounded by Luna's artwork and the few friends and family members they had reconnected with over the past year. Alex's best man was his therapist's recommendation, his architect friend who had helped Luna get her first job. Luna's maid of honor was Mrs. Chen herself, who had become like a mentor and mother figure to her. Their wedding photographer captured the moment perfectly. Two people who had found each other in their darkest hour, now beginning their brightest chapter together. But their real success wasn't just in finding love. It was in learning that the best relationships aren't about completing each other, but about supporting each other to become complete individuals who choose to share their lives. 2 years after their wedding, Alex and Luna opened their own business together, a combination photography studio and architectural design firm that specialized in capturing and creating beautiful living spaces. Their first client was a young woman who had just left a bad relationship and wanted help turning a small apartment into a home where she could feel safe and strong. As Alex watched Luna work with their client, explaining how the right lighting could transform a space and how photography could help someone see their own strength, he thought about that night when she had appeared beside his bed. She had been running from something then, but she had also been running toward a future she couldn't yet see. Now they were both exactly where they belonged. Not because they needed each other, but because they had chosen each other every day, from that first morning over coffee until now.